What's good, y'all? My name is Rorvis Paradox, aka Docs Brando. I'd like to welcome you all to another episode of Rorvis Reviews. Got an interesting episode for y'all. We got a little throwback film as well as some recent #1 film on Netflix. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode that I am going to lay down before you. Make sure you follow the Instagram page at DocsBrando25 to stay up to date, as well as, help support the channel, donations, or just spread the word out where we can get to 500 subscribers. With all that being said, let's get into it. Now, the first film I want to talk about is Walking Tall from 2004, directed by Kevin Bray. Now, this is one of my favorite roles from The Rock before becoming the megastar he was going to be, but also before he started going by Dwayne Johnson as top billing. Now, some of you, like myself, may be surprised to know that this film is actually a remake of the 1973 film with the same name. Both films are based on Sheriff Buford Puser and his time as sheriff of McNairy County, Tennessee. The film is also dedicated to his memory. Now, the film is about a discharged U.S. Army Special Forces sergeant who returns to his hometown that has changed for the worse, and it's up to him to make things right, not just for his family, but the community as a whole. That's the main premise of the film. The film is nothing too crazy. Like I said, this is very early Dwayne catalog, also under WWE Films, which makes sense why he's still being billed as The Rock at this time. But I really enjoyed this film. I kind of want to start just going straight into the highlights because, like I said, the film isn't too crazy, and it's a nice little drama that is main points doesn't stay like it doesn't stay too long. This film is like an hour, 26 minutes maybe, give or take, and everything is everything that you need from this film is shown. And it's nothing too crazy. It's just a little light film that you can knock off and enjoy. This was a great rewatch for me to remember a film that I enjoyed when I was younger. But some of these parts I didn't exactly remember it happening the same way in some areas, but I was glad to come back to this film and enjoy this nice piece of art. Now, to get started with the highlights, I want to say that the film is shot well. I think the film looks good. I think the way they were able to get a lot of the scenery shots before really, like the grand scale shots before we got down to keeping Dwayne on camera, seeing like the little nooks and crannies, stuff like that. It was very interesting how this film was shot. And again, simplistic, but like simplistic at its best form. I think that the writing for this film was enjoyable as well. Again, I think it's very simplistic, but I feel like for the most part, every character hits the beat on time. Everything is flowing well with how this film was made. And that's definitely has to start off with the writing. I think one of my favorite scenes happens very early within the first 20 minutes is the football scene. And this football scene is between Chris Vaughn Jr., who's our main character, his friend Ray, and then their group of friends versus his former high school friend Jay Hamilton and his gang. So these are men that have to be in their 30s, give or take, and they're playing tackle football. Now, if anyone has actually played football, fully padded already can be hectic. So these grown ass men are just roughing each other up for no reason, like they're not going to be sore the next morning. Absolutely ridiculous pissing contest type shit. But what I liked about this scene towards the end starts to show what type of person Jay Hamilton is and what he means to this film just from this small tidbit. And it's very interesting that they was able to leave a little breadcrumb to what would lead into the film. So I really enjoyed this particular scene that encapsulate what was to come. I think what was interesting about this film that it doesn't show like the worst parts, the worst thing that can happen to a character. Like there's a scene where Chris gets attacked and tortured a bit, and they don't show exactly what happens, but they do leave it up to the imagination, and it's done well in the scene, and you'll be surprised when that comes back. As well as there wasn't as much as when guns do come out and there's a lot of bullets being sprayed, they don't really show anyone actually getting shot. Like it's kind of just like shot in that direction and they fall back, but there's never any particular wounds that are being shown that would be grotesque or things like that. So for a film that's toned down in that sense, I really think it was done well. I think that there's not too much after that. Again, this is really about the characters in the film, not much everything else going on. Kind of blends in together with how good things can be. Now, I gotta talk about the cast because they're a highlight in itself, and I gotta start off with The Rock. I think this is a portion of his career very early where he still had the hunger to get roles and prove to people that he could be an actor. And I think this dramatic role where he doesn't have to do too much, but he does just enough to push the film forward as well as give us some acting chops. I think I said this is one of my favorite roles from him, but it's not like top of the line. It's just like one of those where it's just like I grew up on it, and you can see where it will lead to a better performance from him. More specifically, in my opinion, I love his performance in Gridiron Gang, and you can tell where this was going to lead in that direction. I think that the fight scenes within this film were kind of dedicated to him, like well, not dedicated, crafted around him, so he could be all he could be and use what he's been using, what 10, 20 years, yeah, about 10, 15 years worth of wrestling experience in the fight choreography. So making him look strong, some excellent bumps, and I think there's some great moments within this film where he's able to just wreak havoc on these horrible people that surround him and in his town. So I think this film was like one of those films where when a wrestler gets into acting, they try to use their physicality as much as try to elevate to a certain stature to show that they can act. And he balanced it's a well balance of the two worlds merging. So that's what I like from this performance from The Rock in particular. Just enough action and just enough acting, in my opinion, from him. Now, the next person I want to highlight is Johnny Knoxville as Ray Templeton. Now, I was surprised by this performance from Johnny Knoxville. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there can be moments where he's overbearing and doing too much, trying to be hilarious. He's not hilarious when he's trying too hard, but there's like some nuggets in between where he's just able to get a good laugh out of me, or at least a good chuckle. And I appreciate him for that. But what surprised me was when certain scenes needed to be serious, he was able to pull out some great acting chops and made you really you related to him. You felt sympathy for his character at portions. It was like he was letting his friend know, yeah, it's been rough for me, but like, hey, I'm sobered up, I'm good now. And just that moment meant a lot to me seeing Johnny Knoxville do that. So I have to tip my hat off to him. Neil McDonough as Jay Hamilton. I don't know what it is about this guy, but he's just great at being a slime ball. He's great at being a villain. And like I said earlier, he was able to kind of just like ease us into how terrible of a person he could be. And you find out, oh yeah, no, he's absolutely horrific. How could he do this to his community? You're gonna see it progress if you watch this film. But Neil McDowell, terrible fucking person, and does a great job in there. Kevin Durant, uh, favorite of the show, pops up again. Uh, Always a meathead who's a terrible person and does something to our main character in some form or fashion. There's only a few times where I get to cheer for him, and it's amazing. But yeah, a meathead, but he does his job well, being a slimy musclehead for John McDowell's Jay Hamilton. Kristen Wilson as Michelle Vaughn, excellent. Ashley Scott as Denny, the love interest in the film. Doesn't have to do too much. She doesn't really get much screen time, but it was enough to show who she meant to Chris Vaughn, The Rock's character, as well. I want to tip my hat off to John Beasley as Chris Vaughn Sr. He was just trying to be a wise man to his son, bestow the wisdom for he doesn't make the wrong mistakes. And you could tell that they was able to, in the small times they were on screen together, show that they didn't always agree with each other, but they have this father-son bond that can't be broken, and a sense of respect for what each other means to one another, as well as what they've done for their family. So I think that was excellent. Shout out to Cleo Thomas for being little Pete Vaughn, his nephew. Doesn't have to do too much, but he has a moment that sparks pure rage and chaos out of Chris Vaughn, and I enjoy seeing The Rock giving us that type of emotion in that scene. So I have to thank him for that. All in all, I'm gonna say that this film is 3 stars. It's an average film. It's nothing that knocks you out of the park, but I think it's a film that has rewatch value in my opinion. I think that it's a great start to what would be the career that we've all been a part of for The Rock. Well, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So again, 3 stars. Enjoyed the film. Check it out for yourself. Now, the last film I'm going to be talking about is 2024's Rebel Ridge, directed by Jeremy Saulnier. Now, this film is about Terry Richmond, and he is just a simple guy who's on his way biking to a city to bail out his cousin. Now, on the way there, a police officer runs him off the road, like crashes into his tire, makes him fall down, scrapes his arm bad as hell. And instead of, being a genuine person, be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Number one, you already know he did it on purpose. So instead of like just keep going down the road, he hops out the car and acts like he was stopping criminal, like Terry did something wrong. So he calls on the comm like, hey, I got this person on this bridge. Back up. One person comes in as backup on his car, and he lies on Terry and sets him up. So this leads to him being handcuffed, and he's sitting in the back of a car. And then they're like, hey, either we can wait another 45 minutes to get the K9 unit to sniff out your shit, or you could just let us search through it. He's like, fine, whatever. Whoever gets it, just trying to ease it before he can get out and continue on his way. So they're going through his stuff and they find 10K. Not 10K, 36K. They find 36K. And they're like, there's a lot of money here. You selling drugs some? He's like, no, it's clean. It's from my business. And I'm trying to bail out my cousin for what he's done. And we're going to buy a truck and just be on the boat and we're trying to make a good, honest living. And instead of, being understanding and seeing the paperwork that he had, they immediately just said, well, we feel like this is drug related, so we're going to confiscate it. And yeah. And they also give him a ticket. So terrible fucking people. So he gets into the town and is just trying to figure things out. And that's mainly the whole premise of the film is about what he's entering, what world he's entering, and how corrupt the policing actually is, and it digs deeper into what's going on. And what I like about the film, like to start getting into the highlights, is that the segment number one, let's start with the cinematography. This film is absolutely shot superbly. Like, what I loved about this film is it feels like there was no wasted shots. Like, everything we see matters, and there were some great one shot sequences as well. Like, I liked how the director was able to just keep things free flowing. Like, even when characters will walk around into a new area, the camera never left off of them. We kind of just like backpedaled with them as they get into these different areas to get have these conversations, as well as like there's a shot where he goes past the police car after taking his bike out of the trunk, and it just pans from there all the way to the side. And I think it was just an interesting techniques that was going on and great angles as well. I want to give a nod to the fight choreography within this film. I think it definitely grabbed my attention because it's not like John Wick or any of these other action films. He is very organic as well as really based in the real world, because he is an ex-marine and also train people how to fight, like hand-to-hand combat. He's skilled in like many different styles. And shoot, what's funny about a scene that happens, I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it. But anyway, they don't know what they're getting into basically with this character, because he is basically like a one-man army, a living weapon, if I should say. And all the fighting techniques is fluid and very calculated, precise. And I just enjoy that. Like, yes, we love the rapid fire hand to hand combat of other films, but sometimes fighting is not that pretty. It's just not. It's very brutal, and sometimes it can be slow. And I think I love the authenticity of how fights can be in the film from that. I think the film was written well. I think each character's lines can either be a mild cliche, or like there could be moments where it led to the actor being able to put a lot of emotion into the scene, or better yet, giving us some funny quotables, because he's over here saying lines he's really a superhero. Like, he says something, he got off the phone, he says, "Yeah, I put too much sauce on that." It's just like, why? Who are you? Why do you have quips right now? Like, it's just stuff like that that made me enjoy it. And I'm honestly going to be quoting this film all for the rest of the year. I literally can't help it. I was literally just in the Discord call with my friends, and I told my friend Mingo, I said, "I put too much sauce on that." He's like, "Here you go." It's just stuff like that that it's always gonna be memorable to me. Now, I really want to dive into how great this cast was, and I have to salute Aaron Pierre as Terry Richmond. This film is carried by him. It's on his shoulders, and he made sure to not waste a single moment when on camera. Excellent job with the fight choreography. So I gotta give credit to who was able to help train them to be as well fluid as possible. Because again, these are a lot of scenes are one shot, no cuts, and he's just trugging along, just being as menacing as possible to the people, his opposition, and I love it. I think he was able to give a certain amount of emotion, some swagger, some charisma, just like great presence. There's just certain moments where you could just, when he's just standing there, it means a lot, and you could feel the imposingness of how he's presenting himself to these corrupt police officers. Again, this is just a excellent performance for him, and I really want to see him in more films. So hopefully, this puts the rocket on his back where he can shoot for the moon and start working with some other stars. Anna Sophia Robb as Summer McBride. I thought that she was just going to be a white savior trope. I thought she was going to be a love interest, but it's truly just genuine friendship from these two characters, and she's just trying to look out for him. She's paying attention to how certain things are going on in the city, in the town. So it's just interesting seeing how they interact with one another, and just it was just great seeing them on camera, honestly. And as soon as I thought it was going to turn romantic, it never did, and I enjoyed that. Sometimes you don't need to make two people just fall in love with each other over some strange occurrence. Sometimes it's just best to have them look after one another and just care for each other. And I think that was an interesting take on this relationship. Don Johnson as Chief Sandy Byrne. Man, he's just good at playing the racist, ain't he? Like, I was looking at him, I was like, why does his face look so familiar? Oh yeah, he's in Django Unchained. He's the one that said, I can't see shit in this fucking thing. In the class with a bag over his head. And he was just the way this performance, just like, I truly just wanted to punch him in his fucking throat. Like, I really did hate almost everything he said. He was such a fucking weasel. I just hate him. And when he gets into this monologue about why they're doing what they're doing, he's trying to make Terry feel bad or understand where he's coming from, but it doesn't matter because you're a fucking dick and a horrible fucking person. So, Don Johnson, thank you for this performance, but it's like one of those heels in wrestling that's just like, when you see him, you just hate him. You can't do nothing else. It's just a great a standout. Not too much of a standout, but I enjoyed his performance very well. I want to give another nod to David Denman as Officer Evan Morrison. I think the more you pay attention to this character, you can tell there's some layers within it, and he's not like the other officers, and I do appreciate that. Emmerich Cohen as Officer Steve Land, piece of fucking shit, on camera and racist. It's just like Don Johnson, him, these two right here make up like my main hatred towards these characters. Like, these are they're not the greatest tagdom of gaining my hatred, but boy, they did all they could to make sure I had that's near here nor there. Great performance from Emery. Zane J as Officer Jessica Sims, was Sahan, my fault. As just Officer Jessica Sims. Just watch her role. Just pay attention to her. That's all I'm going to say. I did appreciate her performance here. And then James Cromwell as Judge Star, as the judge. My fault. I don't know what is with him, but I have never seen someone typecast so much as the judge. He's always going to be a judge in somebody's movie, and he's always most of the time part of the problem. It's just like, I don't get it, but I do appreciate this small role that he had within the film. All in all, I'm giving the film 3.5 stars. I did enjoy this film. I think it's good, but there's just some parts that didn't take it over the top to that 4 that I really wanted to give it. I really wanted to give it 4. I truly wanted to give it 4 stars, but it's not there yet. But I did enjoy the film. 3.5 stars. Now, I did these two films together and wanted to talk about them because there's some certain similarity and certain differences that I noticed off rip while I was watching Rebel Ridge that made me think about Walking Tall. Now, you have these two military men going to these areas where there's corruption. Not just for Walking Tall, it's not just the police, it's also kind of parts of it's people in the town that are part of it. And with Rebel Ridge, it's mainly the police. Oh, okay, there's some they're more similar. There's more similarities to the amount of corruption within both films that I just thought about as I'm speaking right now, as well as the focus for the most part of Walker Tall, the use of non-lethal weapons. Cause within Rebel Ridge, he ain't trying to kill nobody. He's just trying to do what he has to do for the person he's came to this fucking dust bucket town in the first place. And if he wanted to hurt them, if he wanted to kill them, Terry could have did that. Just like how in Walking Tall, Chris could have been smoked some folks, but he didn't choose to do that. Now he fucked them up. He sure fucked them up, but he didn't kill them until necessary. But that's different. But that's why I chose to do these two films. It's just very interesting to see these characters where one is literally coming back to his city, coming back to his town to not just work, but ends up wanting to make things better for everyone. And in the case of Terry, Terry was just aiming to help one person that he cared about, and that led to him ended up having to face the corruption of a whole town and be the hero that they didn't even know they needed at the time. So I think that's very interesting. But now I gotta ask, what are your thoughts on these films? Have you seen this 2004 film with The Rock? I was just talking to somebody on Twitter. They were very confused when I mentioned what I was doing with this film. So it's funny that some people don't know about this being in The Rock's catalog, but I get it. It's not high on there. As well as, how do you feel about Rebel Ridge? Have you seen it? It's on Netflix. If you didn't know, #1 movie on Netflix right now. So check it out and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing y'all thoughts on these films. If y'all have any, or if there's any films or albums that I need to check out, please drop them in the comments below for I can tap in and give y'all the content that y'all deserve, because y'all been supporting me since February and maybe even way longer in whatever avenue that I've been in. So I do appreciate y'all. Let's get to 500 subscribers, and more than that, let's keep it going for we can grow to the channel that we all know it deserves to be. I'm Rorvis Paradox, aka Docs Brando. Thank you all for watching another Rorvis Reviews. See you next week. Peace.